reason I'd like to know, and maybe there is, but otherwise I have a lot of neighbors and people using the park daily that would just like to know if it could be cleared. It's a roughly 1 mile stretch, so that's all I'm asking for today. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Joseph. All right. I'll just ask, does anybody else?
Those comments, Trustee Lesla? Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. 7B, Trustee Lesla.
I move to approve the ground lease buying between the Village of Menomonee Falls and the Menomonee Falls Historical Society.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Discussion.
Yeah, we had a few concerns, and 10H in the agreement, where it talks about financial and physical property that is currently under operation of the Historical Society, that if they would disband or leave the area, you know, we want to make sure that that is truly detailed enough so that we know that any of those assets at all, whether physical or financial, that those are clearly detailed so that they would stay in the village.
We also had some issues with the potential for maintenance on the buildings and who's to pay for those obligations. We wanted to seek some clarification in the lease to make sure that it's more clearly defined who's going to be maintaining those buildings. And lastly, I had some concerns in particular about the responsiveness of the Historical Society. We wanted to make sure that there was a measure in the contract to make sure that there's responsiveness, and when people are asked questions, they get back to the village.
One other item, 8D and E, where it outlines there. It basically covers, you can read through it, but it discusses the Historical Society's obligation for repairs. And January 19th, I questioned the villages covering $11,000 for roof repair. I would like that also detailed, that the village is reimbursed for that.
Okay. Any other comments from the other members before I add some? Yeah, so that was a discussion, general government. The reason for, I'll add, I agree with all those comments that the trustees mentioned. A little bit of clarity for the assets, and what that means to me is for decades, the Village of Menomonee Falls paid for all of the management for for Old Falls Village, and that was done at a time. Times are different. We need to worry about budgets more, and we're looking at trying to get the Old Falls Village to be more of a self-sustaining enterprise, and that's done. We've done great things with the Friends of Menomonee Falls, and the Historical Society has done great things. Expansions of of what's going on, the calendars. There is some great things being done, but there's also a substantial amount of assets that were built up over those years when the Village of Menomonee Falls was paying for all the costs, and it is important that those assets, financial and otherwise, is clearly understood, defined by the board, and also that this board, or I should say, for my vote, it would be, I want to know that those are clearly under the ownership of the Village of Menomonee Falls. And I do, like I said, echo the rest of your comments. So, no further comments from anybody?
I'm just looking over where you mentioned 8D and E, since those were cited specifically. There looks like there's some verbiage in 8E, but there's nothing really, could we use some more specifics? Are you asking for more specifics in 8D for the maintenance? Do you want to know like what's exactly required?
Well, I think, well, thanks for that question, because I can clarify that. My opinion, the maintenance agreement is pretty clear for both groups, and what happened was, so for me, I think that communication is clear. However, in 2025, the village, for expediency, fixed a roof that was leaking, and the village paid for those costs. Now, according to the agreement of 2025, that was the Historical Society's responsibility to pay, and that's what Trustee Leslie mentioned in regards to the payment for those costs. Since you made the comment, Trustee Jeber, what were you thinking as far as more clarity in maintenance of the buildings?
Well, my understanding was the contract had some leeway within it, or some unclear part from the Historical Society what they were arguing, but my intent was that we go back and look at the contract itself and make sure that we have more specificity to get limited damages if these kinds of things happen in the future as opposed to the past.
So talking about the delays and...
Not to say that I'm against what happened, pursuing what happened in the past. I think if there's an angle to get reimbursed for the expenses that we paid, but I was just more concerned about from here forward, this current lease and going into the future, making sure that it's even more clear and more detailed and defined as to what the Historic Society is going to pay.
Okay.
I just want to touch on the reimbursement. So on most of our standard like development agreements, and this is not a development agreement, but we do have specific wording for reimbursement listed in there. Like if someone pays, who reimburses. So is that what you're looking for, something more detailed like that as well, like an actual reimbursement clause? Because that's standard in contracts.
I would assume this is going to be a one-off experiment where we expedited the repair. In the future, I don't think we should be expediting repairs, or it's clearly stated as, I think Trustee Jeber is talking about, that if there is something that the village puts forth for repair, that is known that, hey, that is going to be paid for by the Historical Society. So we'll leave it up to the discretion of the village manager to bring that into account and the village attorney. But we do need to be made whole of the repair, and if the attorney or the village manager believe that there needs to be a substantial or a change in language to prevent that from happening in the future, so we aren't voting down a contract or an agreement, that would be wise.
Let me just state that we did this, the village paid for a new roof. It was a new roof. And we did that as a part of a capital plan and under my authority relative to expenditure. So let me work with that. The reimbursement makes it, the way you're describing now would make it sound like the Historical Society did something wrong, and I would caution you. They tackled a robust amount of building repair and maintenance in 2025, and this one rose to our top, and so the $11,000, I think $100 or $200 was part of a capital plan to move forward. So I would simply ask that you give me enough leeway to work through this. There was nothing wrong done here. You were alarmed when you saw it on the bill list, but this was agreed to as a part of moving forward. Remember, I think there's 17 buildings and 18 acres, and I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure there, so we're just trying to make sure we do reasonable things. I understand your point of view going forward. I'm a little bit more concerned about going backwards.
And thanks for that clarification. I wasn't intending to say that something was wrong. I do know that it was done for expedition to get that situation fixed. That was my understanding. But thank you.
Now I just feel like I have to say this, but that's my understanding too with the responsiveness, that it's more going forward than what has happened in the past. I want to make sure that we're all clear on what the expectations are, we know what we're working towards, and that we all, next time the roof caves in, we know who's paying for it.
I understand that direction. The language in the ground lease is fairly limited.
And I just want to, so I'm going to clarify, for when I was mentioning the reimbursement, was more so when, for the structured agreements for development agreements, which isn't the same scenario at all as our Old Falls Village. It was more about how developer pays and we reimburse, and that's just part of that standard development agreement. But I'm not sure how, if there would be any need for any language that has to do with fixes in the future to be added, so it's clear, that it's clarified in this for Old Falls Village. But they're definitely not the same agreements.
So with respect to that specific item, there wasn't a funding shortfall, it was just a matter of timing and ability to get the work done?
Timing and the existing work plan of the Historical Society. I believe their building expenditures in 2025 approached $30,000. And I think that was what they thought they could reasonably accomplish. The roof, meanwhile, it was the judgment of the former Director of Public Works that needed to be replaced.
Are those tourism dollars that were used to repair that?
No, that was just a standard capital dollars. For us, that number is manageable relative to the sum total of all of our capital dollars.
Well, looking at their 23 taxes, looks like they have the money to fix it themselves,
I don't,
to reimburse.
I think creating clarification moving forward is I think that's a good policy.
So Mark, with this discussion, depending on if the ground lease is not approved, do you believe that this discussion has been helpful, setting guideposts, goals?
Yeah.
Do you need anything in formal motion?
No, I think I have enough. The ground lease will have to change really to a much more contractually oriented document. And the idea of that endowment of assets and financial and physical assets, that will take some work, but I understand what you're seeking.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, just one last question. If you're getting those list of assets, is there an inventory that would need to be done, or do you have a good idea of what's all there that should be transferred in the unlikely event something happens?
So the issue is really what's critically important to the operation of Old Falls Village. There's a lot of what would never be booked as a capital asset because it's chairs and tables and old stuff and what have you. So I don't think it's as overwhelming as perhaps one might think. The buildings and the grounds are clearly already owned by the village. And the key issue is going to be the financial assets and how those get used to take care of the physical assets. And I think that's where the priority should be. So that would be where I think we approach this.
Any further discussion?
I'm not sure if this is related, but you're talking about the personal assets that the village owns. I mean, do we have insurance around in event of fire? And, I mean, those are,
Yep, this is a village park,
Yeah.
and those buildings are part of the park, and it's fully insured, like all of our facilities.
Trustee
Including the
Suleiman.
contents, or is that
Yeah.
insured by the?
So contents are primarily owned by the Historical Society, and they have their insurances as well. And by contents, I'm really describing the artifacts.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the ground lease, say aye. Opposed? Nay. No, we voted it. It's a up or down vote. Okay. Then I will relinquish the chair.
We'll now go on to item 8, which is utilities public works.